been said that luck is the intersection of preparation and opportunity. Welcome to the Australian Hunting Backcountry podcast, where we will focus on all things hunting in the backcountry, not just in Australia, but everywhere that backcountry hunting is possible. My name is Tobias, and if you're a hunter with no backpacking experience, or even an expert, I would like you to join me as we explore gear, places, and technologies, hear lived experiences, different perspectives, and share the passion that people have for a hard-earned backpack hunt. I appreciate you being here with me as I try to increase the knowledge that will bring us better luck in the backcountry. Welcome again to the Australian Hunting Backcountry podcast. On this episode, I'm joined by Matt Vincent, who is the creator and owner of MTNGEAR.NZ or MTN Gear. For those of you who are familiar with his products, you would immediately recognise the name. But for those of you that aren't, I think you'll be interested to hear from Matt and to explore some of the gear that he has on offer. So, Matt, just give us a quick background about yourself and what you're doing in MTN Gear.
Yes, I'm in my early 30s now, soon to be mid-30s, and I grew up on a farm, kind of always hands-on, did a whole lot of kind of my own stuff gear-wise and kind of different aspects of my life earlier on. But growing up on a farm, sort of always just, shooting and pest control and stuff like that. I didn't actually necessarily grow up hunting much. It wasn't really a passion of my parents. They did a lot of things like mountaineering and didn't really climb much internationally, but did everything there was to do in New Zealand, and sort of good friends with people who climbed internationally, and famous people who died climbing internationally. And so I really kind of started doing a little bit of that and got, I guess, quite a bit of pushback. A lot of friends of theirs died. I remember my father saying to me, all the avalanche experts they knew all died in avalanches. So kind of best not to be an expert in anything in the mountains.
It's like a snake expert, isn't it? The snake expert get bitten by snakes.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. You just put yourself in those situations, and you do it often enough, and no matter how good you are. So that kind of led me to, I guess, I was doing stuff in the mountains, and it was kind of to the point where, you start putting yourself in dangerous situations. You kind of find a new hobby, and almost a perfect combination, really, of being in the mountains and kind of having a goal, I guess, and also quite mechanically minded, obviously, to start a business like this, and sort of always interested in things like guns. It was kind of in my early 20s, really, just started hunting and really started hunting from scratch myself. I struggled to find other people to go with. So I'm pretty sure like all of my first experiences were by myself, essentially. In those early, I basically spent a year walking around the hills, not seeing anything, not shooting anything, just carrying stuff around unnecessarily. Had a pack older than me.
Bushwalking with a rifle, I used to call it.
Yeah, and then it's just one of those things. You're out there long enough, and one day I saw a hind and fawn, and it didn't take long to put a few average shots on the fawn, and had my first deer. And then when I was gutting the deer, there was actually some chamois up above me in the cliffs playing around. So, my first, I guess, success hunting in the mountains was the first time I saw chamois as well. So it's sort of one of those things that you figure that out. You figure out where to look, and what time of the day and what spots, and then basically the next year was spent shooting the first thing I saw of all the different sort of common species around here. And sort of within that process, remember shooting a tahr once, and it was just so incredibly uncomfortable carrying this tahr skin and head out in a pack that was older than me. And yeah, and that, and buying a few other. I bought a nice air mattress. Went away from the real budget, sort of 2 centimeter thick, 3/4 air mattress I was using before, to sort of a nice modern one. And yeah, that's sort of, I couldn't believe how good this thing was, and it was the size of a Coke can, and that kind of I guess really started the I guess gear side of things, and you just realize that how much making or having good gear makes a difference. Having lightweight gear makes a difference to your experience. And kind of started things off like taking my tripod apart and removing there's a lot of those tripods have lower leg sections which are too thin, and they're there but they're not really strong enough to be much use. Things like that, taking them off, drilling bolts out and parts out, and shaving bits of aluminium off which were excess. And at that point I'd slowly started to get a bit of a workshop together. Had the general stuff that you'd find in a farm workshop, but at that point I'd managed to get myself a lathe real cheap, and kind of fix that up, and a few other bits and pieces. So it was pretty rudimentary, but it's I guess was a start, and really started the process off of me, I guess, modifying gear. And then just kind of one thing led to another, and it actually kind of started when I was looking online in the US at hooks for hanging scales on the wall, and they're pretty basic product and pretty inexpensive, and then the shipping's 3-4 times the price of the actual product, trying to get it to New Zealand. So that was sort of where I started, I guess, producing stuff to sell online, and so I'm still selling the trophy hooks to this day. It's not really, it's a pretty niche thing and small, inexpensive item here in New Zealand. Doesn't really go much further than that. But it's, it was sort of, there was a need, and I think part of that need was just based because of our location here in New Zealand. But and then small things like always had Tikka rifles, and started out by machining out the inside of the bolt handles and trying to make them lighter, and then I developed the titanium bolt handle for the Tikka rifles, and then I think the stick was really next. And there are a few other bits and pieces along the way that you kind of experiment with. And then it was probably about 4 years ago, I had a bipod design I did up, and I just priced it out, and I don't know, I guess just at that time, it probably a little bit reflected the budget bracket I was in, but also there just wasn't as much choice. But I priced that out, and I kind of thought, oh, no one would pay that much, for a bipod. And then you fast forward sort of 2 years, and there's more and more products on the market that are in that price range, and I guess some of the other products had kind of come up to that price range as well. So I pulled it out, and had surprisingly few changes. And kind of, so that really, I guess, is where it turned from a hobby into a business, I guess. Even the stick and stuff, I guess it's one of those things that's pretty niche, and it's a bit of a tough product, because you're competing with sort of $100 trekking poles and $100, relatively cheap, like Black Diamond ice axes. So while I guess it bridges that gap between those two products, and does stuff neither of them do. It I guess what you're comparing it to is sort of a little bit in a category of its own. Where with the bipods, it's if you're buying a quality bipod, then you kind of that you accept that that's what you're paying. So it's sort of bigger market and probably not quite so much sticker shock for people.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just been about a year and a half since I've been selling the bipods, and yeah, I guess the kind of just slowly growing the brand and becoming more. It's just more awareness around the product, and it's pretty tough. I've seen on Instagram the last few days people, kind of posting about how Instagram's blocked them for, not there's no kind of terms of service broken or anything like that, or any sort of posts where they're distasteful, because you do see some of those around hunting stuff, but just pretty generic posts, and people are being essentially, I don't know what you call it, shadow banned, just the profile, you can't share and stuff. So it's pretty tough for a small business.
Yeah, I think essentially your business or your page is removed from the algorithm, so it doesn't come up in people's suggestions. Under the guise of air quotes, their community guidelines, because it goes, allegedly goes against them, but there's no, there doesn't seem to be any notification that that's actually what they've done or any appeals process. And social media and Instagram are a completely different topic. But yeah, I think the hunting community, personally anyway, I think the hunting community, I think we really need to start looking towards other platforms other than Facebook and Instagram, those sort of platforms that are going to support businesses and promote hunting, and the positivity that comes out of it.
Yeah, and it's pretty tough. I mean, I can't imagine it's much easier for big businesses. I guess the only difference is they got a bit more money to spend on advertising, but it just makes it hard to reach people, and so it's just one of those things. And I mean, nothing's ever easy anyway, but it's it's one of those things. Slow and steady growth, I guess. Get up every day and kind of do the same thing over again, and slow progress. But it's it's one of those things that if you enjoy doing it, it comes. I mean, I'm still self-employed in my day job, through sort of like consulting work with family and kind of extended sort of family friends. Sort of we all work, there's a number of us that work together. So I'm still somewhat self-employed there, but it's just that's a little bit harder to work through the night on, unless the client really needs something urgently, than it is for sort of something that you're really passionate about. And that's my only issue with this is getting to bed on time. If my partner's away and I'm left to myself, there's a good chance I'm working till well after midnight before I actually manage to get back to the house, go to bed.
Well, you certainly must have a large degree of passion about it if you are working it in around, hobby's not the right word, but essentially it's a hobby business, I guess. Working it around a full-time job that's paying the bills, and this is something you're doing out of passion, and I guess there's almost got to be a stubbornness to it, doesn't there, to want to keep going with something like this and keep working for yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, I have a couple of years ago, I did think about like, why am I doing this? I mean, I was getting away and hunting lots already, but there was never any downtime. And in your sort of weaker moments, you're kind of like, why am I doing this? What's the point? Where's the end game to this?
Yep.
I'm just kind of burning up my spare time. But I always kind of took the approach that, I didn't manage to not get into any debt to do it. Although I'm sure my mortgage would be a lot lower if I didn't. But yeah, there's no specific sort of debt, and I just treated it as that you spend, even if you go to the end of high school, you spend 12, 13 years, kind of educating yourself, and then I did a mechanical engineering degree on top of that. So that's probably this is probably the only really thing I've done where I've kind of used the degree. Ticks the box for employers, but I could have learned that on all that stuff on the job. So yeah, it's just sort of one of those things that I've treated that, hey, I could walk away from this at any point, but learning a lot, even just about running a business and stuff like that. So
Yep.
I think you kind of take that approach that there's no downside, and you just give it a go, and you never know where these things lead. And it's sort of it's been a few years since I've had those thoughts. You kind of get to the point where you kind of figure out what you're doing a bit more, and there's a long list of products I would like to produce, and so you kind of see yourself slowly making progress down that line, and the end point becomes visible, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in running your own business that are very hard to even get training for and get advice on. I mean, you've got a website, you've got social media, the accounting, all those sort of things, sides of business that you think, I'll be able to do it, and then like you say, it's just more work. It's just more time away from actually delivering the service or the product, and so it's very easy for small businesses to get to lose their way and have those thoughts, like you said, where you think, why am I doing this? When there's easier ways to make money, or do something that you maybe even like. So
but and I guess it's it's been easier with this because it comes back to the fact that I'm making products that I want myself to go hunting, and I'm still going hunting, and I still want these products. So there's that sort of underlying desire for the item itself, even if there's not the at times. Or even now, I don't feel overly driven by trying to make money out of it. I get, quite a lot of, I like making the products. I like the products. I get a lot of satisfaction out of people, using something you've created. And all around the world. And it's, it's kind of strange to think that everything out there has gone through my hands. And it's sort of, gone to places I'll never go, unfortunately. But it's also, kind of one of the cool things about it.
Yeah. No, well, good on you for sticking with it and pushing through that. And it's funny you say that as well about seeing your products out there, because sometimes, obviously, I watch a lot of hunting videos on YouTube and social media, and you'll see someone, like you say, in a different part of the world, and all of a sudden they'll be walking along and there in their hand is a mountain stick. And you go, yeah, I know that. I recognise that. And it must be even cooler for you to be able to see that and see people, like you say, appreciating it and using it, knowing that your fingerprints are on that as well.
And I get now quite a few people, they'll send something in, like, oh, did you see this video? Your product's there and products here. So it's, I'm getting to the point where I can't really keep on top of everything, but there's I guess nothing really more rewarding than that. That's kind of the whole point of it, is to have something you create out there being used.
Yep. Well, in terms of your gear then, like I said to you before we started the recording, and I showed you the product that started this for me with you, with your brand, was the mountain stick. Originally, I went looking for a adjustable, something more than a walking stick, something that did have multiple applications, because obviously when you're carrying something in the backcountry, you want it to at least have a dual purpose, so that it's not just a single use item that you're carrying the weight in with, and obviously the safety factor as well. And my communication with you started back in 2020, obviously before or just as the dirty C word was starting up, and I had a trip planned to New Zealand, so I'd done some research and thought, yep, I want one of these adjustable ice axe type things. And there was another brand that I actually looked at getting that had to be imported from, I think it was some European country or something. I can't remember the brand now, and stumbled across yours through a Google search or through social media. And so reached out, and at that stage you'd actually run out of stock. You couldn't get the carbon tubing in, so I had to wait for you to get some more in. But the version that I've got, is this the first one that hit the market?
No, so there was a few before that. They were actually quite similar. The main difference was the locking mechanism for how they extended. They had a little dual push button either side, and you just kind of slid the inner tube up, and those little buttons popped out in the next lot of hole.
Yep.
And I guess that was an easy way for me to do it. Is kind of what it came down to. And the real, I guess, the downside of that is just there's a little bit of movement in there. So every step there's, they're not the quietest product, but not that I really find it to be an issue, but it's just more noise, more movement, and slightly over time the holes, particularly in the inner leg, because those holes were in the same place all the time, if that made sense, whereas the outer leg, the top piece was where it had multiple holes, so you tend to move through those holes a bit more. So the inner leg would just start to sort of open up, and it would just be more movement and stuff. So really the next issue was, what's a better way to lock this up? And there's a little bit of trial and error there. Essentially the nut is the same now to the first one. There was a few minor changes where I guess took inspiration from tripod legs, how their legs extended, and I had plastic sort of wedges in there, which is what I guess provides the clamping force when you twist that nut up. And then I found a few people had issues, and it happened to me as well, where water would get in there and it would freeze. And not really an issue on a tripod, I guess. You're not walking around with it, you're not going through rivers, it's one of those things that it doesn't I've never heard of anyone who has had an issue with the tripod freezing. And then the next step was going to little alloy wedges, and I guess too, that was sort of that locking collar was sort of my first real experience around mass producing machined parts. Obviously I wasn't mass producing them myself. I found a guy not too far away who made them for me, but even just things around just, I guess, tolerances, which is forever an issue. And you learn these things, like when you press that locking collar onto the upper leg, that's just enough to expand that collar a little bit, can be enough to cause issues with your tolerances. Same thing with anodizing. You hard anodize it, and particularly where it's sort of a thread, whether it's a V, that grows, and it grows both ways, and things like that can be an issue with tolerances as well. So it's, yeah, I guess part of the learning curve, and things like on the head, how the head was welded up. The earlier versions, they were all sort of parts where I would just hold them in place and then weld them. And then I think the version you have, all the parts then became sort of interlocking. So they were I guess, self-aligning during the welding process. So, just little things like that.
Okay. Yep. Just to increase that sort of accuracy and the
yeah, and just make it as easy.
repeatability.
Yeah, just make
Yep.
it as easy as possible and as fast as possible to produce. And then had the shipping issue of shipping a box mostly full of air with the welded head um, all over the place. And I guess, I was doing them in volumes where they're not shipped by sea to a store. I'm taking orders direct, and then
Yep.
the customer wants to get them with some sort of, um, they don't want to get them months later. So everything's, going, especially if it's going overseas, going by air.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that kind of led to the next evolution of the aluminium head with the Picatinny slot, and then the parts bolt in, which I guess adds the benefit that they can then be removed, and so the saw blade became an option.
Mm-hmm.
And now, between the 4.0 and the recently released 4.1, essentially the only difference is the attachment for the pick part now has I guess it's quicker to attach and detach. There's no loose bolts when you pull it apart, which I guess has made it sort of feasible to have a snow shovel. So that's sort of the next product in line to be associated with the stick, and it'll still work on the 4.0, but just you'll have to have one or two loose bolts when you do that, which, if you're in snow and stuff like that, that's losing those things is a bit of a risk.
Yep.
And hard to find if you do. So
Yep.
there's a few other things along the way. Had people asking for a snow basket, and so that was sort of wrapped into the lower foot, going from the high sort of carbon stainless steel like the one you have to aluminium with a carbide insert.
Yep.
And then that accepts a snow basket, and the lower leg got a bit smaller. I was having issues producing sort of these internal parts that stop when you unlock the leg, it doesn't come all the way out. There's something in there stopping it. When I was producing those parts, it was not much fun. It was giving me grief. So those parts are now just sort of standard carbon tubes, which was a possibility due to reducing the size of the lower leg a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just, I guess, the whole way me sort of figuring out how to do the same or better via easier means.
Yep.
Not always more cost-effective means, but easier means, when I was pretty much doing everything myself after work. So
yeah, I guess there's that balancing act for you too, isn't there, about saleability of the item and repeatability, and also profitability for you. Because if you were, I'm sure if money wasn't an issue and you were producing this just for yourself and for your mates, you might do some things a lot differently because you weren't interested in making money out of it. But yeah, so well, look, I've been thrilled with mine in the time that I've been using it, and everybody that sees it wants to have another look at it, and they're always very interested in it. And in fact, I did a trip just in May to Victoria with a mate of mine. He's a Kiwi himself, and he straight away picked it up, walked with it. He did the walk in with it, and I was using my my trekking poles. And as soon as we got to camp, he said to me, "I'm buying one of these when we get back." And in fact, when we were on the mountain, we actually had mobile service, and he was on his phone googling it and having a look. And it's certainly eye catching, and people can see the uses and the practicality of it. I do like in the 4.1 how you've moved the your safety lanyard. Is that what you'd call that?
Yeah, I guess I call it a sling, but
Yeah.
or something like that, or a wrist strap.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
I do like how you've moved that. So that's probably one bit of feedback I'll give you in terms of the improvements you've made. Like you said, the head's slightly different. You've got by the look of it, a 3-piece head now, whereas this is the one that I have was a 1-piece because you'd welded it all together and then pop riveted it on.
Yeah.
Now, in all honesty, is the hook on the end actually a bottle opener?
It will open bottles. I guess it's a little bit more multi-purpose than that. It will, you can grab bits of string and stuff with it. You can, I don't know, hang it from a clothesline outside the hut now. But one of my goals going from the 4.0 to the 4.1 was to incorporate something in it that would open bottles efficiently.
All right.
So,
All right.
Yeah.
I saw that on somebody's social media post, and I thought, I wonder if it's just conveniently shaped and happens to open bottles, or if it was actually intentional. But
Yeah, no, it was. I guess adjust the shape and do a few revisions to make sure it worked well on bottle caps. But it was a little bit. I mean, I'd always had the cutouts in there, but it was a little bit of a in a gas station one day, and you see those little credit card size cards they had and they got the little cutouts of the. They got all sorts of bits and pieces on there, screwdrivers and hex parts and stuff. And I thought, well, I'm doing the cutouts anyway. It's a bit of, I'm leaving a little bit on the table there by not trying to incorporate what I can. So, obviously the bottle opener was part of that.
Okay. So the other cutouts that you've got there, the one that I've got, obviously these are, I would dare say, these are just cut in for weight saving purposes. They haven't actually. Don't appear to actually form an intentional purpose. So the ones that you've got there, you're saying they're actually specifically designed for a purpose?
Yeah. So I guess the one you have, I really at that point was trying to optimize weight for strength, and the current ones. I mean, I was able to basically achieve the same thing, and the sort of the long slot that gets larger, you'll notice that it's straight on one side, and then there's sort of a whole lot of little steps on the bottom.
Yep.
And so they actually will take a bolt head. I think the largest might be 12 or 13 mil, so you're not going to get a whole lot in there, but it's something. And then the circles and the slot was kind of similar. I mean, I don't know exactly what you'd use the circles for, but they were sort of similar. Things were found on those sort of utility cards. So I thought, well, I don't have a specific use for them, but I can kind of incorporate some similar shapes into this design as well. And I guess they also, as you'll see, they're kind of placed in a way where kind of reflects the load, and I guess the torque and the force that the pick part would experience, and they obviously taper as you get closer to the head. It's going to experience, I guess, more bending and twisting motion.
All right.
So not completely lost the kind of strength to weight kind of ratio of the design, but just slightly modified.
Yeah. And like you say, you've still got to strike that balance between strength as well and weight. So you can't go, I don't imagine you can go cutting much more out of it without risking losing
No.
the structural integrity of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the most important thing, really.
Yeah.
These other bits are kind of are nice to have if you ever possibly need them.
Mm. Yep. And you said you've got some other tools and so forth coming for them, and I see the snow shovels. One of them there that's still in testing, is it?
Yeah, I've got a few little things to do to the snow shovel still. I've got the lip. I guess before I went away hunting at the start of June, I didn't just never got a chance to do something with the lip, and the lip is still on the one. The latest one I've got is still straight carbon, which is not going to have fantastic longevity
Yep.
against rocks and stuff like that. And then I just need to kind of perfect how it attaches sort of to your pack sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just need to machine up some little aluminium sort of hooks, and they'll get bolted on this edge. I could cut a little slot in the carbon, but the carbon's quite thin, so I just feel like it risks getting snagged and then breaking off. So I'll do little aluminium pieces there, and yeah, and then that's, I guess, assuming all goes well there, that's from a design point of view, kind of that part done. And then it's just nailing down how I'm actually going to produce the parts. And I'll probably try and do, other than maybe a little bit of metal cutting, try and do it all in-house.
Mm-hmm.
And so that'll just take a little bit of time getting the setup right with actually making the carbon part is the easy part, really. It's actually getting it trimmed down neatly and repeatably. Getting that set up right is going to be not overly difficult. It's kind of time consuming part.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine it would
But
be very easy for someone that might have a massive big CNC lathe, a CNC milling machine or something like that. But yeah, for you, it's probably something that's a little bit more time consuming.
yeah, I do have a lightweight, it's like a CNC machine, which I use to cut molds for all this kind of cut composite stuff I like to do. Most of it just sort of hobby stuff, to be honest, making carbon stocks. And I find cutting molds out of MDF to be really, I guess, cost effective.
Yeah.
When you'd be paying thousands of dollars for the molds, it basically costs whatever portion of a sheet of MDF I use.
Yep.
So I probably won't. The molds need to be machined out of alloy. I probably won't do that. And then I guess, yeah, with trimming it down, what I have is fully capable, but I guess I'm not really an experienced machinist and stuff. So just kind of getting that setup done right is going to be a little bit of take a little bit longer for me than it should for an experienced individual.
And other than so you've got a snow shovel, you've got the snow basket, you said, possibly coming soon as well.
Oh, so the stick, now when you purchase the stick, it comes with the saw blade attachment and snow basket and the leash. So those parts come in the box
Okay. Yep.
with it. So I don't actually think I have got to the point where I've got a picture up on the website of the box and everything comes in it. But yeah, you get the as shown on the website plus and it'll be described there, but not visualize the saw blade, which comes in a little plastic sort of case. So because those saw blades are pretty mean, would do a nice job to your puffer jacket or sleeping bag.
Yeah.
So,
all right. And the other modifications to the head as well, sorry, that I meant to talk about before, is the Picatinny rail, which is based at the very top of the stick. What was that just another sort of thought process for you to put in another accessory, or was there some other sort of meaning behind it?
So I guess when I moved from the all stainless welded head to the um, machined, I guess, key component, and then the attachments, was that I was going from a product where um, I welded up, and to be honest, everyone who got one of the earlier versions that was welded up, you're basically, getting my time in that for free.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the machined head, if you were to include the cost of my time, the cost is around the same. But obviously now people were paying for it and had to pay for it because it actually cost me money, not just time.
Yep.
And so it was just a way of sort of how do I provide more value to this product and make it more functional. And I have always used Picatinny rails on my rifle,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's there. So any rifle with a Picatinny rail on the stock will slot straight into there. It doesn't have a clamping mechanism as such. It's got a detented ball in the top, and so that'll go into the slots on any rails.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it makes a great shooting stick. And one of the key benefits is I find with it as a shooting stick is when you go to move or when you're set up with a shot, you don't actually have to hold the stick itself. That firmly attaches to the rifle,
Mm-hmm.
and you can, whether you're sitting down against a rock and it's just attached there, or you've got to move around some vegetation, you don't need to. I guess it's just one less thing to
Yep.
manage in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that was kind of how that came about, and guess being popular for those people who, and it's I guess pretty common in the US in particular, but popular for those people who do have a rail
Yep.
on their rifle stock.
Yeah. It seems to be one or the other. It's either Picatinny or Arca Swiss,
Yeah,
and nothing in between. Nobody seems to be doing much for anything else.
no, there are a few other options, and like Outdoorsmen have their, which is almost a combination of it's more an Arca design, but in a Picatinny size. But I have had a few requests for putting an Arca on the top there. There's kind of just not really the room, to be honest. And also an Arca rail, there's not the standardization of the tolerances. Really right stuff. We're trying to get everyone on
Yeah.
board with a set of
Yeah.
dimensions.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I have heard that. Yeah. And there's that was something I heard recently on another podcast, and they mentioned all these products that are on available on Amazon and eBay and so forth, and because of the way the Arca Swiss mount works with the being able to screw it in and clamp it down, there's the ability to have those tolerances, such variation in those tolerances of their design. So, so no, I understand. That would be a complication, another complication for you.
And there might be the possibility to make an adapter, which that would go on top, and then it would have a similar clamping style to the classic Arca one that you could clamp on there, but obviously it just adds a bit of bulk and wouldn't make it as ergonomic. But could be one of the stocks I have, which is a Element XLR chassis. I've just got a really small Picatinny rail, sort of mid on the chassis, down the fore end, and sort of covers both bases. I don't really slide the bipod back past there. The tripod really doesn't go in front of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was the second part to the question is about the Picatinny rail, was whether there was thoughts, and if you're giving away secrets here, then please feel free to tell me to shut up. But whether there's other accessories coming from Mountain Gear to fit the Picatinny rail, such as maybe a bino stand or something, because it's I one of the things I found with the mountain stick is, and I've seen Thane from Rogie do this a couple of times, but to sit down and then you can very quickly put your binos on top of the stick and use it as a stand to stabilise.
Yeah, I actually have quite a while ago now made up a bino mast, and my honest opinion is it's just better to put your binos on top. And the reason was, I found without sort of quite a complicated mechanism in the bino mast, you lost the ability to pan up and down, and it just, then you had to go forward and back with the stick, and so I came to the conclusion that obviously it's one less thing to carry, so from a weight, one less thing to buy, from a cost, and then just from a usability point of view, I just think putting the binoculars straight on the top was better. So I do have some here, but yeah, I just didn't feel like it was a good way to use it. So I didn't go down that route. I have prototyped up and used quite a bit an extension stick for teepee tents and the like. With that, I still got it there with all my camping gear, something I'll use now and then. But I kind of came to a similar conclusion where it did actually work well. But the problem I had was then any day that I left my tarp set up, I was without the stick, which is, kind of quite a downside. And then also it's just one of those things where it wasn't really compatible with many, other products, other companies' products. So it was the sort of thing where it was only going to be a portion of people who bought the stick would likely buy that. So it just wasn't really, I didn't and probably at the moment still don't see quite the
justification.
I just don't think there'll be enough people purchasing it for it to be a cost-effective product. And then obviously, that's just from a straight numbers point of view. If you take 10% of the people who have the stick who would buy that, and then it's obviously the downside of not having the ability to use the stick on any day you want to keep your tarp set up, teepee set up. So
and that's I think a significant point that you've raised there. I've looked at there's a few tents around, lightweight tents, and they use a one or two trekking poles. And again, if you're packing up camp and moving every day, then that's fine. But I don't want to leave camp without either the trekking pole or the stick. So in the end, didn't bother purchasing the tents and went with different ones with their own integrated poles to have the ability to just leave it up and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, and quite a few of those, some of them will have either, it might be an additional extra, but you can buy quite nice little carbon poles that go with those, and it might be, sometimes it's even more weight effective way of doing it. I've in the past carried an additional trekking pole for a tarp that needs two, and same thing, by the time you look at something else, you might get a better product. You think you're saving weight, but in some cases, having a dedicated product for it saves at least a bit of hassle and mucking around, and always a trade-off.
Yeah, that's it. Everything's a trade-off, isn't it? Welcome to this segment of Friends of the Podcast, and on this episode I'm joined by Chris Burns from Skeleton Optics Australia. Chris, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Tobias. Hope you're well, mate.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I understand you just got back from a big trip too, so I realise that you'll probably be doing a bit of catching up, and just want to get Skeleton Optics, I guess, out into the podcast audience. So if you can just give us a rundown then on who Skeleton Optics are, because I know they're established in the States already, and what products they can bring to the hunting and shooting industry.
Yeah, so Skeleton Optics is a premium lifestyle brand that specialises in high performance and durable sunglasses for active outdoor users. The sunglasses are engineered with precision, including unrivaled polarised lenses, manufactured by world-renowned leader in optics, Carl Zeiss Vision, and have handcrafted frames designed and manufactured in Italy. So the company was founded in 2015 by Mark and Laurie Liano over in the States, and they're dedicated. They were dedicated to delivering the best eyewear and protection for the outdoor user. So since its inception, Skeleton Optics has invested in design and craftsmanship by creating proprietary designed moulds for each of its frames. Therefore, every frame is designed exclusively by Skeleton Optics for our customers. Working closely with industry-leading design and manufacturing companies from Italy, Skeleton Optics is committed to developing cutting-edge, ultra-lightweight eyewear for outdoor enthusiasts.
Yeah, right. Look, one of the side effects of getting old is my eyesight's deteriorating, and there was a bespoke little optometrist that I used to go to, and they were very firm on their stance on which lenses they used, and they only used Zeiss lenses, and they cost a little more. And when they explained to me why they used them and the differences between Zeiss lenses and some of the other lenses out there, they really sold it to me. So the fact that Skeleton are using Zeiss as well, I think, is indicative of the quality that they're obviously trying to put out there for everyone.
Yeah, so I think with the lenses, it's one of the features that sets Skeleton Optics apart. Obviously, Zeiss pioneer innovation in that space, the optics space. So they've been there that long that they're very trusted in the optics sort of arena. So together with Skeleton Optics, they've created a unique vision solution. So each pair of Skeleton Optics come with a polarised polycarbonate lens, which is the gold standard for outdoor active use. They're lightweight and durable, and it's a better option in material over traditional glass or plastic lenses.
Yeah.
Those lenses also offer 100% UVA, B and C protection, glare-free vision for high image definition and precision, superior contrast, and a reduction in eye fatigue. Pairing that with solid grey tint, every pair of Skeleton Optics sunglasses boast a true colour recognition, visual clarity, and comfort for everyday use.
Yeah. And there's something unique about the coating on the lenses too, isn't there?
Yeah, so there's a mirror coating that doesn't affect the vision at all, but it helps with cleaning the lens. It's got a technology that Carl Zeiss's vision team have developed called Tripel. It's an outstanding scratch-resistant and durable mirror coating, resulting in an effortless repulsion of dirt, water, sweat, salt, oil, sunscreen, dust from that lens surface. It's very durable, so scratching, when you clean your sunglasses, very rare to get a scratch on them. So I think that mirror coating also helps the product in the outdoor space.
Yeah. And for you and Daniela, you were obviously so impressed by something or collective about the Skeleton Optics and the products that you decided to also bring them into Australia and start this business.
Yeah, I think what sold me on the product was as soon as I put them on, it was so clear and comfortable. The glasses just fit my face so well, and I almost could see again. As soon as I put those glasses on, I just saw the world in a different view. Years ago, I did have a pair of sunglasses that I loved, and I lost them recently, and I hadn't been able to find one to replace those. So it was probably a little bit nostalgic to put on a sunglass that felt like those old ones that I liked. So yeah, my face is a bit of a different shape, and the Outlaws that I tried on was perfect for my face, and yeah, the vision that I got, the clarity from those lenses was unreal.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you're also a professional photographer, Chris, so I'm going to suggest that you know a thing or two about high quality lenses and glass, because professional photographers don't buy cheap camera lenses.
No, I think the lens or the glass in the lens is the most important part of a photographer's kit. The cameras are all very similar, but what can delineate between a professional and a hobbyist is that expensive glass, and the lenses are the most important part, which is why Skeleton Optics has gone down the path of developing lenses with Zeiss. Obviously, Zeiss are a world leader in that space, so it's a perfect pairing, I think, for the outdoor enthusiast.
Yep, yep. Now the frames as well. You said that they're proprietary design. So are these going to be something that we could buy made by another manufacturer that's going to be cheaper, or are these something that's exclusive to Skeleton?
No, so every frame's exclusively designed for Skeleton Optics customers. They're designed with a team in Italy, so they're Italian made and designed. They're made out of a Brillamid TR90 material, which is lightweight and very tough. It's known for its exceptional durability and chemical resistance, and it's obviously performing its best in the outdoor space for like hunting and fishing enthusiasts.
Yeah. All right. So it's tough, light, and chemical resistant, which is all going to be important features for shooters and hunters and fishermen, even, because we're always exposed to different sorts of chemicals. The guns have got solvents and oils on them, and there's always oil around boats and fuel and sunscreen and all that sort of thing. So those sort of things aren't going to damage the frames.
No, that's right. All of those things were in mind when they designed and came up with this material. Yeah.
Well, look, one of the things that I have picked up over the years is the importance of having some sunglasses as well when you're backpack hunting. In America years ago, we were there during October and November, and so there was snow everywhere. So we had a lot of snow glare coming off, and I realised the importance of having a decent set of sunglasses then. So not so much even that, but even in Australia, obviously very sunny climate over here, and walking through the bush as you do when you're hunting, we're not always on cleared trails. Sometimes we do have to bash through a bit of scrub, so having a bit of extra eye protection there is going to be a big advantage to a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's important to protect your eyes. Obviously, you only get one shot at your vision. You don't want to lose it. It's an integral part of our hobby, or when we go hunting, obviously we've got to use our eyes to spot game and stuff like that. So you don't want to go losing an eye in an accident. So I was recently in Victoria doing a backcountry hunt and photographing a bloke, and obviously he's in front of me doing the hunt and I'm behind him, and the bushes that he's walking through are coming back and whipping me in the face and hitting my camera, and having a pair of sunnies is perfect for that situation, because I can protect my camera, but obviously my face is exposed then. So, I think sunnies are a perfect application for that.
Yeah. All right. Where will people go to find Skeleton Optics and have a look at the range?
Yeah, so the website's skeletonoptics.com.au. we're going to offer an exclusive offer for Australian Hunting Backcountry podcast listeners. If you jump on there and would like to make a purchase of one of the sunglasses frames that we offer, if you use the code backcountry15 at checkout, you'll get 15% off. We'll make it available for this month and next, so August and September. So yeah, jump on skeletonoptics.com.au for this limited time offer.
Yeah, great, Chris. Thanks very much for that. Appreciate it. 15% off is very generous. And are you on the socials as well?
Yeah, we're on social media. So on Instagram, skeletonoptics_AU. Jump on there to follow us. Yeah, keep up to date with all the information that we're putting out there. We like to go through what the frames are. We we go through the technical side of the products and stuff like that. So it's handy to be active on Instagram there.
Yeah. And is the website live at the moment?
Yes, it's live. You can jump on there right now. Whenever this podcast goes out, jump on and have a look at the range. There's a few different sunglasses styles to check out. There's also a pair for the ladies. We're busy trying to develop more for the ladies. Obviously, there's a lot of women in the outdoor space as well that are looking for sunglasses and would probably like to support brands that are active in the outdoor space. So yeah, our focus in the future is to develop a large women's range as well.
Yeah, great. All right, Chris, thanks very much. Really appreciate you coming on, and really appreciate the discount code as well.
My pleasure, Tobias. Thank you for having me on. Hopefully the listeners can get some good use out of the sunglasses when they go and purchase.
Yeah, great. Right. And one of the other, I guess, more popular items that you've got are the bipods. So talk us through the seed, the very start of the bipod, how that came about. I know you said before that you were working on it about 4 years ago, and then it obviously eventuated into a marketable product.
Yeah, and it was sort of when I did the design up 4 years ago, which is very similar to what it is now. I just kind of at that time thought it was too expensive. No one would spend that amount of money, but down the line, there's more products that are sort of similar price. There's some of the sort of pre-existing products. I mean, maybe they were similar to some of my earlier products. They were underpriced at the time, and they all seem to have risen up quite a bit. So yeah, just kind of 2 years ago, kind of became apparent that the price sort of bracket I was looking at was not sort of out of the question, and comparing what my product would be to other high-end products, was kind of fitting for the price. So I pulled that out and sort of made the sort of changes and to the design, and sort of, I guess, reflected in those 2 years sort of the further education, I guess, I personally had, and sort of personal development and producing products. And sort of implemented that. And so about 1.5 years ago, we started selling bipods. And even before that, I'd been modifying others' products and combining others' products, as things I liked from various products into one. And yeah, I guess, really the focus has been on my mountain bipods. That's sort of the flagship. That's what I wanted to create, I guess. And yeah, it took a while to get a bit of traction, and sort of just one of those things that every sort of year the business has become bigger in multiples, but when you're starting off a real small base, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. But yeah, I guess the bipods are sort of the mainstream within the hunting community, the mainstream sort of product that's sort of, really, I guess, been the thing that I wouldn't say makes the business a financial success, but sort of sets me down that path to really sort of it being a business in the future is a possibility. And I guess shows you that there's a path to that, and sort of hopefully getting all these other products off the ground that I've designed, some combination of in my head and on the computer. And so I guess probably the mountain bipod is in that sort of real development stage right now in the background, where we're going from a product that we're happy with to a product that we're happy with and is good to manufacture, if that makes sense. And they're not necessarily the same thing in terms of behind the scenes. The end user might not really notice the difference, but it's just one of those things that it's just streamlined for us to actually produce. So we got a few parts at the moment where, say, if we have an issue, we can't get the pieces apart, which is a bit of a downfall, really. We've had a few of the detents on the Picatinny attachment where the tolerance might be just off, and that means that there's so much force required in the press to push those pieces together. It bends the plunger, and then that thing's cut off, really. And that's all wasted time and money, essentially. So just trying to streamline those back end things. But we've been very happy overall, and been getting a lot of requests for ARCA attachments.
That was going to be my next question.
Which is really it's probably not going to be straight away mainstream for a lot of hunters, but more and more people are moving into that, and I guess those are the people who probably moved away from sort of swivel stud attachment products into Picatinny attachment products quite early, and a lot of those people are now moving, or they might not be the same people because it's a little bit of a weight difference often, but similar sort of group of people who are looking for a bit more functionality and a few more options around products and setups and stuff, who are making that shift. And so for some of our rifles, we've done it too, and so the bipod is, and so for those who is going to ask that question, we're going to offer Picatinny and ARCA, and then also an ARM 17S. And the reason we're doing that is because that just gives people the option to, attach whatever attachment device they would like. And also there's a few stocks out there where the Picatinny rails, they're done really nicely, but they're like rebated into the stock. And so our method of sliding on with the Picatinny doesn't work. There's a few rails out there we're finding which are out of spec, and they're not cheaply produced products, but it's one of those things. Tolerance is a bit of a pain, and doesn't take much to be. We rejected a whole lot of our rails at one point, similar issues, so it happens. And a different attachment method would mean that's not an issue. If it rails, I guess more the ARCA style, where you screw in from the side and it'll be what it'll be, and it just clamps up where it's at. So that'll, and then I guess that'll give people the option, if they do have Picatinny and ARCA, it'll be easier to swap between the two. And there's even really right stuff, I think, to a attachment which is takes both Picatinny and Arca. Obviously, there'd be a weight penalty there, but trying to make stuff as functional as possible.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess it's when you're building a product that you're trying to satisfy the broadest audience possible. There's always going to be a small component or a component of the population that's going to be left out or excluded because of that. And with so many products out there, the market's just flooded now with all sorts of accessories and products, and it's great for us. But I guess from a manufacturer's point of view, like yourself, you've got to sort of then the issue of how am I going to adapt this to fulfill the broadest need. So I don't envy you on that part.
Yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare trying to make products cross compatible between brands. It's easy enough for me to get a product in and say, oh, yep, works with our rails. But in terms of someone else's products, it might be a little bit undersized, and I mean, it still might even be within tolerance. It might be undersized and it just doesn't lock up quite as nice. Might be oversized and then just not compatible. So it's and even I mean, it's one of those things that doesn't take much. We're talking about pretty fine tolerances, and it's easy to have them not quite perfect. I mean, it's hard to get them the same when you're just doing the same thing over and over again. Things don't turn out the same. Especially when you're talking about fractions of millimeters. So
yeah, I remember hearing a podcast. I can't remember his name now. There's Porter Arms, I think it is. He's an Australian guy, manufactures some rings, some scope rings. And I think on his podcast, he was even talking about having to account in the wear of the tooling as well. And the computer, the machine having to make allowances for that over the course of how many products were being produced. So,
yeah, and I mean, when you get down to the real sort of minute degrees of accuracy, things like the temperature of the room and stuff like that all plays a role. We have a bit of issue with the titanium. Anything that's tapped that's titanium, because titanium's just so mean to deal with. It wears those taps, and now we got things in place in the assembly process that if you go to put a screw in and it feels tight, that goes aside, and we run a new taps, relatively new tap through that to just because same thing, those I don't know how many they do before they swap taps, but there's wear in the process, and some get tight.
Yep.
And it is what it is.
Carbon, the carbon piping and carbon fibre has made a big impact in the hunting industry in recent years, and it's obviously becoming more affordable. And there's the recent introduction into the industry that seems to have taken the bipod industry and carbon fibre hunting accessories by storm. I'll mention their name, I guess, because it's no secret, but the Spartan Javelin bipods and their tripods and heads and so forth, and obviously they have a proprietary system, the peg and cup and magnets and so forth. Do you see whether there's opportunity for you to adapt things to fit in with those systems as well, or are you planning on staying well away from that and just sticking with the rails, the Arca and the Picatinny?
Well, I guess there's a couple of issues there. One is that they have a patented system, so we can't infringe on that anyway. I believe that they have attachment fittings which makes their products interchangeable with, well, makes them compatible with products that have rails anyway. So I think they probably have that covered to some certain extent. I'm not totally sure. I personally, I really like the, I guess the universality of the rails, whether it be Picatinny and Arca, and I intend to incorporate and I guess accommodate for both. I think they both have their pluses and minuses in different situations. In some ways, the Picatinny is a bit more streamlined and nicer for on a hunting rifle, particularly if you've got a more classic style stock. And lots of manufacturers are recessing it into the forend now, so there's nothing to snag. There's some people making some really nice stuff. The Arca is probably not so nice visually, maybe for a lot of people, but it has, I guess, it has some sort of benefits, particularly with shooting off a tripod or even just a full length rail on the forend with an Arca bipod gives you more flexibility. You can set your gun up kind of on a whether you call it a sentry style setup. You're sitting there waiting on the edge of a clearing, your gun's on a on a log or something, and it's a bit easier to keep balance there. It's not balanced purely on the forend where you would normally have a bipod. So yes, so I really like both of them, and then obviously I can't infringe on other people's sort of designs, but from a functionality point of view too, I like using various products myself from different companies. So I guess it would probably be going against my personal kind of views a little bit to make an exclusive attachment system. So yeah, but I mean that's not a knock against Spartan either. I guess they came into the market when there wasn't at all widespread use of rails and stuff like that as well. And they have really sort of I guess pioneered the space of lightweight bipods and then tripods for hunting. So I think it is kind of a reflection of their when they kind of came to market initially, but I do see they're making more and more products that are cross compatible anyway. So
they I think from memory, they do have quite a few different adapters. So they're certainly probably covering that base for you anyway.
Yeah, I think so. So I think it's one of those things. There'll be options there.
So you've got the 3 bipods. That's the backcountry. Just looking on your website, you've got the backcountry light, the backcountry, and then the mountain.
Yeah.
Are they the first 2 are sold out at the moment? Is that are they coming back once you build your stock back up again?
That might be a little bit of a stock issue actually. I do have actually plenty of the lights in stock. I know that, so maybe I need to check that and do a bit of a stock take. I'm a little bit on the fence, I guess. In terms of the future of the backcountry options, so they're basically the same metal parts with different leg options. I guess the mountain was really what I wanted to produce, and so the backcountry was more in line with your typical bipod design. Obviously, our take on it, but and because it doesn't have the leg spread feature, it's lighter, it's cheaper to produce. So initially, when we're kind of finding our way, it hit a different sort of area in the market.
Mm-hmm.
So we're a little bit undecided of, I guess, this future.
Yep.
Yeah, generally in most circumstances, I would recommend the mountain bipod.
All right.
So yeah,
Well,
I guess we'll see if how many requests. I guess is kind of what it comes down to. What people want.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
All right. Well, talk us through the mountain bipod then.
Yeah, so I guess the main thing I really wanted to see, and I'd used a few others. There weren't many options on the market, but I used a few others where the legs, the spread, the angle between them, their stance was adjustable, and to me that was just the best feature on a bipod. It made adjustment much quicker. It gave I guess a greater range of angles where you could shoot from, especially when you are shooting in the mountains, and or just anywhere in the backcountry. You're hiking, you're out of a pack. You've only got a limited amount of space and weight, and there's just not really. I mean, sometimes I pull out my puffer in a dry bag and use that as a rear bag, but often there's just not really the ability to carry a rear bag with you. And there are some people making fill for rear bags, which it's hard to believe that it's even there. So it is really light, but then when you're on a 10-day backpacking trip, you're cramming your gear in your pack and looking forward to almost eating the first few sticks worth of food to make your pack a bit more manageable in terms of getting everything in there. So even if it's not that heavy, you often don't have the spare room. So the spread really helps just allow and I guess getting your rifle the right height off the ground so you can get 3 points of support, and it might be your hand or a stick or a bit of rock or something, but it makes it easier to get the rear end of your rifle in a reasonable height off the ground where you can, I guess, give yourself as much stability as possible when taking a shot. And particularly now, the rifles out there are pretty amazing, and so it's most people who go hunting in the backcountry in the mountains have the ability to shoot an animal at 500 meters, rifle wise, and so just trying to getting as stable as possible on the ground, especially if you're puffing or adrenaline's up. Making it easy to do that, I found hugely beneficial. Just the range, we took it further than any other bipod I'm aware of, that can be as low as 8 centimeters off the ground, and then when the legs are close and extended, I think it's slightly over 40 centimeters. So I guess just giving as much versatility, and we really find, I guess we get a lot of comments about shooting downhill, things like that. We've all tried to take a shot, even on flat ground with the bipod, and you're trying to hold the buttstock of the rifle awkwardly high off the ground if you're laying down. And so, it's just, I guess, making it easy and just giving that adjustability. Then being able to go flat means that you can use, I guess you just have a whole lot more stability, so you can literally put the bipod up against the wall, one leg foot up the wall, one leg a foot off the wall, and there's so much adjustment with the cant that it's not a problem to use it like that.
Yeah, I'm just looking at on your website, and you've got a few photos of different setup examples, and one of them there is the right leg is virtually as short as it'll go and out horizontal, and then the left leg is extended as long as it will go, and you've sort of got it wedged up against a rock. and then other examples. There's one there, where you're probably about that 8 centimeters. It's the legs are obviously out as wide as they'll go, and you're very close to just poking through the top of the grass with the barrel. So certainly a lot of versatility there in the angles and the cant and the tilt and so forth. In terms of panning and tracking, how does it go for that?
It'll rotate through 360.
Mm-hmm.
You do, I guess, just because there's so much adjustment, you do need to be aware of how things are set up. So there is, if the leg's way up one side, then obviously it's going to collide with something when you try and turn it through 360. But if it's down, hopefully you don't need to go through 360. But so you have a lot of essentially unlimited movement there. I mean, I personally don't really like pan. I don't think it. I think it kind of leads to sort of inaccuracies, particularly kind of when it recoils. But it's a hunting product. Often the feet are where you got to put them. Sometimes it's dictated by the terrain, and so you have to have the pan there in a hunting product. So can essentially unlimited pan. And really the tilt is limited by the cant is limited by when generally the button on the leg of the bipod for deploying it will collide with your rifle stock is really the limiting factor there. And on some of my stocks, you'll kind of notice like the first picture with the bull barrel and green stock, I try and have the rail right at the front, and then and it is a little bit limited by the shape and design of your rifle stock, but I try and have the rail at the front and then have the bipod kind of on the front hole where it's fully attached to the rail, and so it kind of hangs over the front of your stock a little bit and just frees up a little bit more space for it to, I guess, the leg to come higher. But in all reality, there's not many. Surprisingly few instances where you're actually using it like that. But
right. And in terms of the weight of a rifle or the caliber, would you have any restrictions on that?
I have had people using them on pretty big guns. I guess my products are what I would want, so which sometimes is not that great for the customer. And so it's kind of based on what's typical here in New Zealand, and really I kind of view what's ideal for hunting in New Zealand is sort of up to the Win Mag, Rem Mag case. So I mean, I know people use bigger, and there is cases for that, but I guess you're kind of what I do. You're getting into sort of a range where you end up with so much power in your gun that you're not really. It wouldn't be nice to carry those sort of rifles. Well, that's my personal view. Around the mountains and through the bush. So that's sort of roughly where.
No, it is. It's a compromise. I have a 338 Remington Ultra Mag that I love, and obviously it's you've got to compromise between weight and recoil manage and that sort of thing. I'm not doing a lot of shooting with it, so one or two shots, it's quite pleasant. It's definitely manageable and not noticeable, and I do have a muzzle brake on it as well. So the old saying, muzzle brakes got no mates. But when I've got to do a bit of load development and shoot it over the bench, after a dozen or more, that's when you really start hating on it. But coming back to the weight question about the rifle, then if you're buying a mountain bipod, you're not necessarily going to be carrying around a 10 kilo PRS style rifle and shooting it off the bipod in the mountains. So So I guess as a guide, I would generally say up to the
7mm Rem mag, 300 Win mag, that sort of thing. And I don't know, I guess it's pretty hard to get a long range hunting rifle set up under. I mean, maybe you could get as low as 3.2 kgs, but in all reality, you're looking at somewhere between 3.5 to, I don't know, maybe if you're going with something that's got a few more features or big scope and something like that, 5 kgs is probably getting up there for a lot of hunting rifles. But yeah, I mean, those sort of bigger ultra mags and stuff, I mean, I see they would be great for shooting tar on a windy day, that sort of thing. But but to me it doesn't sound that pleasant getting it up the hill, to be honest. and through the bush is probably the main thing. You tend to have a longer barrel and stuff like that.
Yeah. Some days I do question my choice, but I sort of there's a story behind it, Matt, that I won't bore you with too much now. But essentially, I got to a point where I decided I needed to have one rifle in one caliber that could do pretty much everything that I wanted to do, which was going to include buffalo and large North American and Alaskan game, and then potentially African plains game. So that was why I settled on that caliber, and I have managed to get it down to 4.1 kilos. So that's with a 26-inch stainless barrel.
Okay.
But it does present its own challenges.
Yeah, and I've personally kind of been finding that with my 7mm Rem mag that I actually really use the power that it has. It's just often so windy here that you can't really shoot at great distances anyway. So I'm in the process of getting a 6.5 PRC done, which is no worse in the wind, and is going to have enough energy for the typical distances I shoot anyway here. And also keeping in mind that here in New Zealand we don't have any dangerous game, and our animals are really not that big. Red deer, stag really being the biggest. Maybe elk, but that's rare.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the 6.5 caliber as well. So there shouldn't be anything that it can't do, that rifle can't do.
Yeah, and it's a bit of an unusual, I guess, case size, if you put it that way. There's a lot in the 308 case, and then typically you jump to the Rem mag, Win mag case, and I feel like there's just quite a gap in between there. And obviously there's a 270 and the 3006, which have been very popular for a long time. And I guess the 6.5 PRC is really sort of the modern equivalent of the 270 almost, kind of going in between that energy range of a 308 and a 300 Win mag.
Yep. Yeah, I'm also very interested. I know we're getting off topic here a little bit, but as soon as you start talking about calibers, you run the risk of doing that with me. But I'm also really interested in the 6.8 Western and the sort of 270 variants and playing around with fast twist 270 barrels. So I'm talking to my gunsmith at the moment about some of the options in the 270 caliber, and seeing maybe doing something slightly different.
Yeah, there's some real nice options. A gunsmith here who's going to put the 6.5 together for me, he has been developing a 7mm 270, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah.
And he's getting great speeds and great accuracy and consistency. And if I did have a choice, I probably would prefer this 7mm over 6.5. Something like a 7mm 6.5 PRC, because obviously the 7mm PRC is quite a step up in energy. But I would like to have something that has good off the shelf ammo options. So that kind of limits me to 270 or really 6.5 PRC. There seems to be more good options almost already for that than 270.
Yeah, and that's the other factor as well. Particularly, I imagine New Zealand's probably very similar to Australia in terms of getting components, brass and projectiles and so forth. You know, the American market is consuming so much of that, and somebody a while ago, I think it might have been the Hornady guys, said on one of their podcasts that Australia is less than 2% of their market. So they can't really justify sending, supplies over here when the market over there is in such high demand. They can't even keep up with the production over there. So they're not. If somebody said to you, I want you to manufacture this, and it's only going to be 2% of your profit margin, you wouldn't even. You probably take you a while to actually get around to doing it in terms of prioritising it. I
can't imagine the rest of the world is half a day's worth of their sales out of the year. So
So that's another factor as well. That and I reload, so I'm happy to. I don't have the problem of factory ammo, but then getting the components, the dies, and the cases, and that sort of thing. But in terms of, because you're a hunter then as well, in terms of other gear, because the focus here is really around the backcountry and backcountry hunting and backpacking. For you, in terms of other gear, what are some of the other top items that you always take away on a backcountry hunt?
I don't go anywhere without my spotter.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I've got to the point where I've shot enough things. I mean, I've not been wildly successful by any means, but you shot enough. I'm not looking to shoot something for the sake of it. It's got to be something that I'm stoked to take home. And because often a lot of these trips are a long way from the truck, and I'm conscious that it's hard on your body, and I'd like to be doing this till I'm 70 sort of thing. So I'm pretty selective. So the spotter is just sort of, I wouldn't consider going without it.
Yep. Okay. So what's your spotter of choice then?
So I have a STX 85.
Okay. Yep.
I did briefly use a 95. I guess just for the terrain and stuff I hunt. It was the big objective was great, but it just didn't quite have the field of view. So went down to the 85, and I feel like it's a good mix. I spent a lot of time actually glassing with the spotter as well.
Yeah.
In our terrain, small animals, they sit down in the scrub. A lot of the day's wasted.
Yeah. And you prefer the straight over the angled?
Yeah, I have. I don't know what you call it. I feel uncomfortable when I don't have great posture. I sleep flat on my back without a pillow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just prefer the straight. It's a little bit of mucking around sometimes. The angled is faster to get on target, if you're quickly checking something, but I have that pretty well down. And what I'll often do is, whether it's against my pack, I'll sit down and against the bank or against my pack and put the tripod legs across in front of me, and can spend hours glassing. And so that's my personal preference, really. I just find it much more comfortable, and I can be more effective for longer glassing. So a little bit slower to get set up, but when I do,
Yep. Yeah, I use a straight as well, and I just find it's quicker to, once you find something in your binos and you want to get your spotter on it, it's more natural to look directly at it rather than having to look down. Yeah, I'm sure it's just something that I would get used to if I was using an angled more, but yeah, for me, I'd prefer the straight at the moment as well. So
Yeah, I do find that when I use friends that are angled, I find it hard to find the animal, but I have put that down a little bit to me just being used to using the straight where I can look at the animal and kind of slide my face in front of the spotter and it's right and I'm looking in the same spot. Yeah, it also packs a bit better too, which is not really a big consideration, but and also I find that I don't spend a lot of time, particularly close to where I live, where I would typically hunt, because when I had less money and less flexibility with work, and most of my time hunting was weekends, and everything close to here there's quite a strong, I guess, bush coverage up to tree line.
yep.
And so Friday night was basically getting into the tops. And so very little of my time was I actually looking up. Whereas down south where people hunt tara, but where the tara are, there's in a lot of places is open country and you can walk up the valley and just sit at the bottom and look up. Whereas I'm often looking across or down at animals. So I think the angle probably works a bit more for people at the bottom of the hill looking up.
Yep.
Straight's probably a bit better for people at the top looking down.
Yep. And what else makes it into your pack every trip?
I guess, having a business in sort of a hunting industry, you can justify spending a bit more money. And so tax deductible business expense as well.
Yep.
So things like I've got a set of NL Pures. I've been really impressed with them. Just the field of view.
Yep.
The field of view just was really nice, and probably one of the biggest considerations I have when looking at what optics I like, but not so much with rifle scopes, but particularly with ones where it's nice to have on a rifle scope, but particularly ones where you're searching for animals. So yeah, been a big fan of that. And then I guess there's a few other things I quite like the first their wick base layer, and then I always have some of the Kuyu mid layers. Their fleece mid layers are kind of my go-to. And yeah, no one really seems to. There are a few other options out there, but from the comfort and warmth point of view and durability, they're hard to beat.
Yep.
So yeah, that's probably it really. A lot of my other stuff is comes and goes, and I kind of bounce between freestanding tents and then four-season freestanding tents, and then sort of pyramid style teepee tent. It's a tough one. There's no solution to those things, and a sleeping bag versus quilt that I'm totally happy with, to be honest. It's sort of
You're using a quilt now, did you say?
Yeah, I have been for a long time, but I'm kind of in the process of going back to a sleeping bag, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Particularly for winter. Theoretically, the quilt's better, but you roll over and get a bit of cold air coming.
I've never been. I've looked at many quilts and thought about it over the years, and I know it's a little bit of weight saving. I've never been brave enough to pull the trigger on one. Yeah, it's always been that winter factor that, as you say, you shift in the middle of the night and you get that gust of cold air come in. It's just enough to make you uncomfortable for a just long enough to be to wake you up, I imagine. And I don't know, I could be wrong. I've never used one, so I'm speaking out of turn. But I've never been brave enough. I've always just gone with the sleeping bags.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the quilt, and I have been using it, generally a quilt for probably the last 3 years almost exclusively. And there is a theoretical benefit to it. If you're lying on down, it's not really doing its job, just squished up. So the sleeping bag underneath you is not effective. You're better off having a warmer mat and then down on top of you. But the reality is that to get a quilt that is not was less likely to kind of open up on you in the night, you end up with something that's the size of a sleeping bag anyway. So and then you might as well just have it joint together.
Yeah. What
But
quilt
in
were you
summer,
running?
it's not so bad. It was one I actually made. So
Okay.
it was essentially like a copy of the Enlighten equipment ones.
Yeah.
Very, very similar.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with it, and probably will tend to still use it in summer. All those shoulder season hunts where it's not that cold here in New Zealand, but for the midwinter hunts, it's struggling to stay warm at night. And the last thing you need is that.
Yeah. One of the things I do like about the quilts is that they tie to your sleeping mat and get held on that way, and that's what I've looked for in a sleeping bag, and that's what I have now, a Thermarest sleeping bag that has straps running around the back of it, so that it holds onto your sleeping mat, because I usually find myself sliding off. You can't always find a perfectly flat bit of ground to pitch your tent on. And just that little bit of angle, sometimes you end up off the mat, and even just part of your body ends up on the cold ground. So that's one of the reasons I looked at quilts in earnest. But because I found that sleeping bag with that function, I've sort of put it on the back burner. But
yeah, I mean, I did try that with my quilt initially. I just found there was a bit of kind of mucking around when you want to move off your sleeping mat for some reason. You want to, lean out and grab something. It is nice to have, I guess, that sort of freedom of movement. I mean, I wonder if someone would come up with a good magnet system along the side of the sleeping mat and quilt, and it would kind of snap in place. And then allow you to kind of break that at will. But I mean, that might be something where by the time you do that, you add the same amount of weight as you would have had having a sleeping bag.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. All right. And now, are you traditional Kiwi footy shorts and long johns?
Yeah, I do like the long johns. I wear a pair of them almost like basketball shorts. Almost. I found a pair where I like the fabric, kind of a grey, so they're not out of place. Adidas, they got zip pockets. I like to have my phone in my pocket.
Yep.
For navigation and taking photos and whatnot. So and they're just above the knee, helping to reduce a bit of sunburn here in the summer.
Yeah. Yep.
But kind of essentially very similar. And in winter, I will wear long pants more now. But they're very they're probably more summer pants than winter pants. But I just find that I run quite hot, so I don't tend to need a whole lot. But as soon as it's kind of not the dead of winter, in shorts, it's much more comfortable, and I find it easier to regulate my body temperature.
Yeah. All right. And pack and boots?
I have not been totally happy with any pair of boots I've had recently. Currently have a pair of Scarpa Rebel, something like that, 2 HD, and they kind of got like a sock fit. So they don't have like a typical tongue.
Okay. Yep.
And I wouldn't recommend them.
Yep.
It's basically, they get frozen, and then it's very hard to get your foot in and out because
Okay.
the tongue is, instead of having excess material there which allows you to pull the tongue out, it's kind of stretchy,
Mm-hmm.
and that then gets water in there, and it enlarges as it freezes, and makes it very hard to get your foot in and out. And they didn't stay waterproof for very long. But so and I've had a series of, actually probably some of the previous ones are a bit better, sort of synthetic boots, trying to just stay away from leather, just kind of for a weight sort of thing, really, and particularly when they get wet. But I do wear through the outers pretty quick. But in saying that, I'll wear the tread out pretty quick anyway. So, but I'll probably go back to I've had a series of La Sportiva ones, which are relatively lightweight. I like quite stiff boots.
Yep.
But lightweight and stiff is sort of a little bit of a oxymoron almost. So there's not a massive range to choose from. And then pack, I have a Faru frame, and then a bag I made myself.
Okay. Yep.
That goes on that, so it's kind of a good combo. Kind of picky. The bag, I've pulled it apart and redone it a few times, so it's sort of exactly how I like.
Yep.
Spider pocket on one side, the other side I attach my rifle to, and then 3 pockets down the back, sort of for all my bits and pieces, and then either side of the pockets down the back, zippers to access the main bag. So,
all right.
and I don't use a lid. So I made the snow collar quite long and then longer at the front, so it kind of folds over on itself, and that's how I close it and don't use the lid. So
all right. I don't have in terms of boots. I have I've spent thousands of dollars over the years trying all sorts of different brands and styles of boots. I seem to have really odd feet, and I always end up with blisters and a particular sort of nerve pain and things like that. And about 4 odd years ago, I had been seeing Lathrop and Sons on social media quite a bit. You've probably seen them.
Yep.
And had a trip coming up to America, and I thought I'm just going to have to spend the money, because I'm if I'd spent the money years ago instead of buying boots based on people's recommendations or someone on social media, I would have been in front. Anyway, the short version is it was the best thing I ever did. They sent me out the kit, the mapping kit. You do impressions and trace your feet, send photos back, and then they have a consultation with you, and then design the boot to fit you, basically. They do have their own brand of boots, but they actually recommended for me the lower Tibets, and because they're leather as well, my right foot is somewhat larger or somewhat wider than my left foot, so they stretched the boot for me, and obviously being leather, it accommodated that. So and then they have their own inner soles as well. So it's like a very flexible silicon inner sole. And I haven't had problems. I had very, very few problems ever since swapping to those. And in fact, I've just worn out. They're just about to. They're sort of on their last legs now. The first pair I bought, so I've just ordered another set from them. So that's my recommendation in terms of boots. If you're not happy, consider giving them a go.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to, I guess, weight. For me, I've found it's just covering massive kilometres. Yeah, so I guess partly just the synthetic really helps with that. But, I think if you give up with the synthetic, there's just they're just not going to be as waterproof as one thing.
Yeah. I've had some synthetics leak on me just walking through wet grass for a couple of hours. So.
Yeah, well, these Scarpa ones were particularly bad. Probably 2 hunts, and then they started to leak, and it's sort of right in the toes either side. It just literally, I could feel them leaking walking through grass, like you said. So, my feet don't seem to be that picky, despite I do have quite wide feet. But I have seen these kind of interesting, they almost look like medieval torture devices that you can put in your boots, and sort of that's probably only really works with leather boots, where you have hot spots here and there, you can shape your boot to kind of relieve pressure in those spots. And those the lower Tibets are quite popular here in New Zealand too.
Yeah, no, they're like I said, they've changed. I won't say they've changed my life, but they've certainly, in terms of comfort, because obviously, your feet are the first thing to touch the ground, and they carry all the weight, and you're walking over. Hunting's very different to backpacking, where you're walking on trails. You're very rarely walking on trails or flat ground, even ground when you're hunting. So they really have made a big difference. A good set of boots. So I just happen to have, I call them unlucky feet, and some people have lucky feet. My father, he has lucky feet. He can literally walk into a shop, pull a set of boots off the shelf, hold them up against his current boots on the bottom to make sure they're the right size, and wear them without any problem whatsoever. But I don't have that luxury. So
yeah, it's I know it's a pretty tough one to deal with, and the good boots are expensive, and there's no easy way to find out whether they're going to work for you until you have spent the money, basically.
Exactly, yep. Because you walk around the showroom on the nice flat carpeted floor, and you go, yeah, these feel okay, yep. And then, yep, like you say, first hour into your hunt, you're regretting life. So.
Yeah, and I particularly find when they get wet, some boots will lose their shape, and sort of interesting things can start to happen. And yes, it's there's no way to deal with that other than just giving it a go, really.
Yeah. Matt, look, I know I'm mindful of your time, and I'm sure we could talk hunting stuff all night. I see there's a few other products on your website there that we didn't get around to talking about too much. You've got muzzle brake and sling, and some bolt knobs and other accessories there, and even some titanium pots and shirts and all sorts of good gear. So what's the best way for people to find you to look at the products we've spoken about tonight and the other stuff you've got?
Probably online is the website. So it's MTNGEAR.NZ for New Zealand and Australian listeners is the place to go. There's also a .us version of everything, be it the website or social media as well. For people in North America, I have a bit of a greater selection on the .nz. So there's a few more options. People in Aussie and New Zealand, partly that comes down to sort of what products are easier to, I guess, ship and keep in stock from here in New Zealand. Really the bipods and the sticks are the main ones in the US. So yeah, and jump on there. I've got lots of put a decent amount of information on the website. Chances are there's a few typos and something I've missed. So yeah, pretty responsive there's a contact us on the page or through social media as well, and I'm try to be the last week, probably not so much. I've been away for a hunting show down south in Te Anau, but try to get lots of, I guess, more customer pictures on social media, so people can see other people using stuff, and there's it's only so many times I can show a product on one of my rifles. But yeah, if it's any questions, anything that I haven't done a great job in communicating about, feel free to flick me a message. And that also helps me to, make improvements for others.
Yep.
But yeah, we got quite a few products there, and we got a bunch more on the way, bunch of Arca rails in the process of being produced to kind of, as we discussed, there's a bit of a shift towards Arca, and we're going to be making Arca bipods, so that's sort of got general Arca rails, and then going to do some rifle Arca rails as well.
Yeah.
And then that sort of is going to be the lead into hopefully getting a tripod sort of into production. So yeah,
okay.
and all of that stuff's there, future products as well, sort of as placeholders.
All right. You just let slip that you've potentially got a tripod coming, did you?
Yeah, it's. I think it's been on the website for a while. It's one of those things that kind of gets a back foot whenever we're short on time. So it's been a long time in the process, and it's just one of those things that kind of need to get through the really the Arca bipod sort of thing, and also then a bit of it will come down to cost. It's going to cost to go into production of a whole new sort of like reasonably involved product. It's going to cost me $100,000 to just get the stock, do the run.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll unfortunately take longer than I hope, but it's there.
Yep. All right. Well, look, Matt and listeners, as I said, I've had a mountain stick for a number of years now, and have given it a fair old workout, and I am really impressed with it, and can highly recommend it. And Matt, I'm a big believer in the saying "buy once, cry once." We've all experienced the purchasing a cheaper product and having it let us down or fail us. So if you're looking for quality gear, I can thoroughly recommend the mountain gear, and I look forward to seeing what else you bring out in the future. And I wish you all the best with the business, Matt.
Yeah, no, much appreciated. Thanks, Tobias.
Yeah.
It's one of those things too. Not only are you hopefully doing the buy once, cry once, you're actually buying from someone who cares about the product being out there, and so
exactly.
Hopefully it's a really good purchase for you long term, and it's not so much the sale that's our focus; it's sort of the product. So
Yep. No, and I love that you're a serious hunter yourself, so you're well and truly getting out there testing these products, and that we can be assured that you wouldn't be releasing something into the market that isn't well and truly tested and proven.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, I mean, it's pretty tough in terms of to test products. You do all you can, and then you give it to hundreds of people who use it in should I say unusual ways, and just different things happen. So it's one of those things that it is hard to cover all the spectrums of how people will use it, but we are not we're actually using the product ourselves, and we're not we don't have that disconnect between often I feel like people selling products don't use them or don't even kind of do any activity within the realm that their business operates. So yeah, hopefully that's a good advantage for us in the future with kind of hunting related stuff.
Absolutely. All right. All right, Matt. Really appreciate you making the time to come on.
No problem. Much appreciated as well.
Thank you.
Okay, cheers.
Hey, thank you for listening in. If you'd like to contact me for a chat, pass on any feedback, or have some ideas for future podcasts, please reach out to me on Instagram at australian_hunting_backcountry or email australian.hunting.backcountry@outlook.com.au. For now though, please look after yourselves and your mates.